When you go to Bathurst and it's just one of those untraditional places, and you like when I watch on TV, I look at it and I say, man, hope they don't go over the wall and wind up down the mountain. But you're talking about going rally car racing and doing all those things. What's the mystique and the intrigue of racing at a place like that? Because when I watch it here, I mean, it looks intense, and just the way that the track is laid out.
It's just like the Daytona 500 here, I guess, the mystique and the build-up around it. We have it 3/4 of the way through the season, I guess, so there's a bit of a build-up for it. We have an endurance race called the Sandown 500 first, where there's a dual driver race, and it sort of starts the anticipation for it. But
how many weeks? Obviously, it's
kind of 2 or 3 weeks after.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. But when you get to Bathurst, it's 1,000 feet, basically, the top to the bottom. It's pretty steep, and it's like what I'm finding here when you go to the ovals, you don't see the banking on TV until you get there. It's like that. When you're up the hill and down, it's amazing how steep and undulating it is. Like walking up, it's pretty hard to walk up, and then walking down, you're trying not to fall over. And what it does to the car when the wheels come off the ground and it unloads. It took me 2 or 3 years to be fully fast there. And then the way the race is, it took me a long time to be a factor every year. It's a really hard race to be good at.
Who was your go-to guy in the supercars? Like who helped you?
Not really. We don't really sort of do anything over there. Like there's no coaches, or everyone's sort of stuck together back then, or you stuck to themselves. So kind of had to be self-taught. And then 2019, I had Garth Tander. He retired and became my co-driver for the Enduros, and he taught me how to win that race. So yeah, 2019 we raced together, and then 2020 and 22 we won it together. Yeah.
And I think culturally, like when I went to Europe, it was you against everybody in your tent, and it was always don't tell your teammate too much. You didn't cut your teammate any slack, and it's not like that here. I mean, there are moments where you have to race your teammate, but all the meetings are together. Yeah. Everything that you do in the sim is shared. Everything that you have on your data, open, everything is more open. In Australia and New Zealand, was it much of the European culture, or was it more like what you've experienced here?
At first it was. Now, especially at the team I was at the end, 888, everything was open, and the team worked much better together for it, and us as drivers. But at the start, it was Stone Brothers. We had sort of 3 cars, and we all sort of did our own thing, and you kept a lot within yourself. But yeah, it doesn't help lift the whole team up together. You got to beat everyone else before you focus on your own teammates and beating them, I guess. So yeah, the teamwork factor is really important.
Was there a lot of the same style of simulation and things that we have here, or was that not there yet?
Not there. That's blown me away here, especially with no practice, how much they rely on the sim here, and what you see or what you don't see behind the scenes here is whether it's the computer sim or the driving computer sim, it's unbelievable the level of technology here, which is a shame. It's kind of hidden, the fan doesn't get to see it, but yeah, it's very, very impressive, the tech here.
Yeah, and I think when a lot of people, they watch an F1 race and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the technology and everything that's happening, and they're putting numbers and different things all over the place. And then people like you come in here for the first time and are blown away by the tech centers that all the manufacturers have, the war room that people have that are back watching the race and figuring out everything that's going on. And I tell people that, and you'll get a first timer to come over, whether it's a sponsor or somebody to come into the shop, and they'll look at the shops and they'll be like, well, we thought this would be like a 4-car garage with a couple of guys working on it.
Especially when you see an Xfinity car, the simple 4-speed gearbox and the way the diff and rear end is, but the science that's into that stuff, which you don't see, is, I'm still blown away by it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the harder parts for people to get used to when they come over and have all this data available. And it's interesting to me to hear your comment to how much you use that data. Is it something that you want to dive into, or do you try to keep it simple, and how do you use it?
I'm very data driven. So especially when we're in the Cup car, the SMT, I spent hours trying to look at everyone else's stuff, especially when we got to Chicago when there wasn't that much history. The Toyotas in particular had quite a different style in the first half of the track, and I'd catch them back up on the end. So I was trying to get better at the first half and understand. And it's I've never been in a series where you can see everyone else's data as well. Normally you just have yours and your teammates. So yeah, the way NASCAR does it in Cup, it's very basic driving data, but you're still getting everyone's is
there
rare.
anything that stuck out from one particular guy?
No, not too much. Denny got me a lot under brakes. He was very good under brakes, but I was flowing the car a lot better. So, which helped me in the last sector through the tricky stuff. But yeah, I got my braking a bit better for the race day. When
it rained and the track was wet, what was the comparison between what you used to race in these cars? What was the difference in how the car felt or how you could use the power, things like that?
You really felt the weight of the car. So the car's, it's 300 kilos. What's that, 600 pounds or something heavier than what I race?
Oh, I'm terrible at math.
Yeah. So
you're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, I think it's about 600 pounds. But you could really feel the weight of the car. It didn't feel alive at all. Felt very dead and slippery on those tires. So it was the same for everyone, but the throttle control was ridiculous what you needed. It was pretty tough while it was fully wet.
And the shifting part of it? Has that been difficult? Right hand, left hand?
It's been hard now in the H pattern. Yeah, sequential's easy. My rally car was sequential, but the first at Daytona, the second to third shift going across the gate. I don't think I've ever used that muscle before. So shifting with the right hand on an H pattern's been difficult, but the sequential is easy.
So right now, the difficulty that you have is just shifting the H pattern.
Yeah.
And how about your neck? Has it been sore yet? I know you didn't do a lot of laps at Vegas, but I bet it was still.
Yeah, it was actually Atlanta the first time. I got 15 laps into the race. So this is going to hurt if I do this for 180 or whatever the race was. So pretty quickly just let it rest on the outside, and now I've padded that up a bit. But yeah.
I think as I go back to Chicago, and a lot was made out of how you drove the car, and you talk about those differences with the style and the things that you did, but the noticeable style, because you had a camera, was the fact that you used the clutch. And there's only a couple guys that I've seen in this country that use the clutch. And is that how you were taught to road race? Or I know the heel toe piece of it is pretty common, but the piece with the clutch to control the wheel spin and everything that happens there, that's not something that you see everybody do. So how did that develop?
When I first started racing in Formula V, you needed to heel toe, so the skills started there. But when we get into supercars, we had a solid rear end, locked diff. So you had to run so much rear brake to make the car turn. So you'd always have a lot of rear locking. So under braking, I'd be on the clutch trying to take a bit of rear brake away. And it doesn't really do the same thing in these cars because you have the open diff. And I'm not sure what the Xfinity car will be like. But I just stuck with right foot braking because it's all I've ever known. And I hadn't really ever left foot braked until I got in the rally car. And now again in the ovals. So the left foot braking's a new skill to me. But I think I'll stick with my right foot for the road courses. But the clutch is just an extra tool to take away rear brake, I guess. So you can run a bit more rear brake to help the car turn.
I would definitely suggest that you don't change anything.
I think I'll stick with it.
On the road courses. The only guy that I've ever seen, Bobby Labonte, used to drive like you drive a streetcar. He would go from the gas to the brake with just his right foot. He would use his left foot to actually use the clutch, but he would never use his left foot to actually brake. So he would go from the gas pedal over to the brake pedal. So I'm always intrigued by how people learn, because it's just not a typical skill that you would see somebody develop without a lot of work at it.
I saw how crazy everyone went about it here because they hadn't seen it for a while, I guess. But to me, it's just normal. That's all I've ever known.
Well, Marcus used to be super good at it, and Watkins Glen is really where Marcus Ambrose would stick out. And I tell people all the time, if Marcus had the quality of car that he needed, he'd still be here.
Yeah,
because he was just that good. But when we would go to Watkins Glen, there wasn't anybody even close to being able to do the things that he did. And one of the years that he won in the Xfinity car there, the motor was literally hanging in the car by one bolt. All the motor mounts were broke off of it, and still just throttling forward because he had such a different technique. And that didn't really translate to Sonoma at the time because of how slick the racetrack was, and it was just a different style of racing. But the things that you guys can do under the braking with that technique.
Well, Watkins is very similar to Phillip Island in Australia, and Ambrose, Marcus just used to kill everyone at Phillip Island. His style just is very good at the flowing tracks. And yeah, he's very impressive.
Hey, race fans, thanks for watching our video. For all NASCAR on Fox News, content, and the best clips from Fox Sports, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel.